Hello my lovely Lego addicts and welcome back to the channel. This has obviously been a long time coming. I've been saying I was going to do this review forever, but I also really wanted to cherish this build and really collect my thoughts on it to make sure that I was doing it justice, and also because this was a massive set that I've been anticipating for a really long time and had been saving for a really long time, so I didn't want to rush through the build just to make a review even though I was going to be late anyway. So I really just wanted to make sure I did this right and enjoyed the build first and foremost. Now, as you can see, it's sitting on the shelf behind me. I was gonna put it in front of me right here, front and center, but I couldn't find a frame in this room where I could fit in this camera angle, but also the set. So it's right there on the shelf. Oh boy, have I got a list. I actually have such a list that I had to make a document to make sure I could talk about every single thing that I wanted to talk about, because I had various thoughts while building it, both good and bad, as you would have seen from the title, because not everything is rosy coloured, sadly, and I just really want to make sure that I touch on all those things, though inevitably I will miss a few things, because sometimes things come to mind and you forget about them, and then later on you're like, oh, I really should have mentioned that, but I'm sure you will help me out in the comments down below. So I want to break this review down into 5 categories, which is building techniques, figures, quality, which I have a lot to say about, mini gripes, and delightful details. And I felt like those 5 categories would roughly mean that I can kind of put everything in a clear way. If you're particularly interested in anything in particular, there are timestamps down below, so feel free to skip to those moments. But if you want to just hear my general thoughts on a set and a breakdown of it, do stick around for the whole video. Thanks! Alrighty, first up, building techniques. Now, this set is the perfect set to talk about building techniques. There is so many things in this set that delight, that are brilliant, genius, wonderful. As I went into this build, I had really high expectations of the set and the way it looked, but I hadn't given a lot of thought to the building experience, and actually this set, without a shadow of my doubt, is my favourite set of all sets that I've ever built. What delights me and makes this ranking so high for me is the fact that there are a lot of things in this set that I would never have come up with myself, and also are now things that I do know how to do and can apply into different things in my own mocks. So it's like both a delight to see something brilliant and then also the applicability to other things that I can do. So this set is chock full of them. The designers, like, hat off to you. Wow. Because not only is this set intricate, detailed, wonderful, brilliantly built, but because it's a Lego set, it has to be of a certain stability. And the fact that this set looks the way it does and is as stable as it is blows my mind. There is a lot of things in this set that are just like, wow, that is wacky and awesome, and how does this work, and that's how you make it stable, and just a lot. Also, I really felt that this build was really well paced. Every single bag pretty much had like at least some sort of really wonderful surprise, really fun building techniques, and though some things are symmetrical in the set, there weren't too many times 2/4/6. There were a few, but never too many, and that really made sure that this build delighted all the way through. Obviously this set sits on a base, so the base occasionally was a little bit more boring, but because the base edges are still like detailed, it wasn't like, oh, I really want to get through this. And sometimes they would also drop a figure in the bags where you're building a base, so you still have like a really nice little detail item. Something that I commented on in my Heavenly Realms review, where I said I was building so much technique and there was no figures to break it up. That really felt like they thought about that in this set, and the pacing felt really appropriate. Also, because this set comes in 3 parts, there was a progression 3 times, and that was a really nice pacing, so you kind of never felt like you were just building forever just to have a base level. I also really felt, and this may have just been my perception, I don't know, but I really felt that I went in with high expectations, but the first book really delighted me and I was absolutely impressed with all the building techniques. But then still, every single book kept getting better and having better building techniques, but my expectations were already so high, but they kept topping them. I really felt, and I'm hoping that that's not an experience that I'm ruining for you right now because I'm talking about that, but that was something that impressed me so much. I have to talk about bag 20. Bag 20 was probably the bag that just like delighted me so much, to the point that I had to take a clip and video of it as I was building it, because I was like, I'm gonna want to include this in this review. So if you just watch that clip right now. I've just built this and I had to just record bag 20. This blew my mind. Like, wow, holy crap, this is so impressive, so sturdy. This is so amazing. As you can see, I was completely mind blown by it. It just came together in a way where I was like, it's just so satisfying. And the way that you can lift the pavilion up and put it back down and it perfectly slots in and it's really sturdy. It's just fantastic. I think that is a really good like parameter for you to understand what kind of level of building we're doing. The trees in the set are really very similar to the ones that come in the A-frame cabin, and when the A-frame cabin images were released, I got really excited because I actually really like those trees, and as some of you know, I actually have built some of those trees roughly based on those for my park already because I genuinely really adore them. I just added a few more leaves. So these trees were a delight to build. They are similar, not entirely the same, especially the bases are a bit different, and I really love that they are included. I think they're brilliant designs. The only tree that's different is the green tree at the back, which is very brick built but still looks quite organic. I was really impressed with the design and just the color change of it. The only thing I would say is at the end of the tree builds, you do have a few times, however many, to get the leaves on top of all the like tree limbs, but admittedly, like, you just have to do that in order to attach them. What I tend to find with Lego sets is that when you have trees, there's just not enough leaves on them. And though I definitely think there could be more leaves on these trees, it also doesn't feel too scarce, which I have felt in previous sets before. So you get an incredible amount of really beautifully coloured leaf pieces in a multitude of colours, and I love that element so much. So that's a huge delight. The detailing in this set is genuinely amazing. It's really mind-boggling that this is even Lego, and it really goes to show that this was designed by somebody really talented, but also with a really serious love for Lord of the Rings that was desperate to make this the best set he could have made. And if you've watched any interviews with the designers, that's hugely just what he brings off, and I would really recommend you watch some interviews because it's really awesome to get an insight into the building process. But this set is kind of like a crowning jewel of like a love for a theme. The instruction books also have little notes in them every now and then when they want to point out specific things, and some are just so lovely and nerdy, and it's just delightful because when you build like the third type of mushroom in the set, which are like these little elven banks, whatever you call them in English, on the side of the tree by the pavilion, it says like there's 3 types of mushroom in this set, one of which only using one piece, which is the one you've just built, and then it said a shortcut to mushrooms, and it just made me laugh so much and just delight in that level of attention and love for the theme for the set. It also mentioned in one of those notes that the base for the pavilion was actually the most geometrically challenging thing that they did for this build, and when you build it you can totally see why, because not only do they have to make the shape work, but they have to also make it of a certain sturdy like level where you can use it really easily, and they've nailed that. It looks like it would have been a huge pain to design, and the fact that they pull that off again makes me really happy to be building it and seeing that expertise, because it really feels like you've bought a masterpiece that you get to recreate, and it's like learning so many really interesting fun new techniques. This has been talked about a lot, but I have to just really quickly mention it. The way that the tiles on the roofs are done, brilliant. The way that you can just put them on where they need to go and then just use a plate or a tile to just make them straight so you don't have to individually move every single tile. The best. Honestly, so smart. I have to be honest, when I saw the initial images, I was like, well, they won't have done that annoying a building technique if they haven't got a solution for it. So I was expecting something to come up, but the way that they actually did it, brilliant. So simple and so effective, and I've actually since used that technique on one of my mocks in a sort of similar manner, and I love it. Still, it's so effective. Alright, that is it for the building techniques. If you are wanting a set that is going to challenge you, delight you, teach you, this is the set for you. It is really gonna bring that learning, that masterclass, that fun. It's a delight. Not only does it look great on a shelf, it turns out the building of it is a delight. I'm sure that the wonderful Tiago will have a lot more to say. I very purposely not watched any reviews on this set before I made my own because I wanted to make sure that everything I said were my own opinions, but I'm really desperate to watch his review because I would love to know what he thinks of the building techniques because it's such an important thing to him, so do go watch his review as well. Alright, next up, a very important category, especially for me, the figures. Now, this is where I have to be slightly less happy. I am incredibly fussy, as you know. I have a very high standard and I have opinions. These characters, they mean a lot to me. So I really have a very high expectation of these, especially if they're using new molds and new designs. Let's dive in because there's a lot to say and some of you already know some of the things I'm going to say here. Though I have to say, as a sort of general thing, the fact that they have included this many figures, thank you. Brilliant. The whole fellowship, it really makes it feel like a UCS set. I really appreciated it because not every figure is necessarily essential to the set, and there's a few real like fan favorites or fan nods in here, and I really appreciate that. So having said that, let's dive into every single individual figure and my opinions on them. So I will be comparing these to the older versions of the figures where they existed because I think it's kind of important because there is a standard for these figures already, and a lot of us are of the opinion that the 2014 range of Lord of the Rings sets is actually a really high standard of figure. So it is kind of hard to reach that level, let's be honest, but they've done it before, so really, in my opinion, they should be at the same level, if not higher. If we then just go into Elrond's, first of all, I think Elrond's robes are delightful, marvellous, printing on his skirt piece back and front, just wonderful. I really wish that we had the old elven hair with the crown part of the hair. It feels more appropriate because when you look at images of Elrond, the crown that he has, or like the tiara, whatever you want to call it, circular, sits over his hair and not underneath it. So that's my only gripe with his figure, but I do think it's a really beautiful figure and probably one of the only ones, spoiler alert, on which the new hairpiece just about works. Next up, Boromir. Basically, all the rage for Boromir. He looks fantastic. I think that this figure is just perfect, really. It's probably one of the best figures in his set, in my opinion. I think his shield is awesome. We get his sword. His face is fantastic. I really enjoy his robes. He's very similar to the Boromir that we did see before, but that's fine because that was a really good Boromir, so I'm not mad that it's really close. This is also the first figure that we're touching upon that has a cape. I'm so glad we get capes. I love capes. I love all the Lego things. I'm really glad that we have capes. I wish all the Harry Potter figures still had those capes. I just really like them, I'm sorry. So I'm really glad that the Lord of the Rings figures do still have their capes on occasions. It makes me happy. Next up, Legolas. And again, it's an elf, so I have something to say about the hairpiece. I am not a fan of the elven hairpiece that they've done for this set. I'm just going to put it out right now. I think the elven hairpiece that they did, though it's nice that the hair is rubber and then the ears are hard plastic and therefore the contrast is really good, I don't think that the development is perfect, and because the standard of those hairpieces was so high from the previous sets, I think that they've slightly fallen short, in my opinion, of that level of detail. And especially with Legolas, that's really apparent for me because I think his hairpiece in particular really doesn't kind of encapsulate what Legolas looks like in the movies. I think this hairpiece, especially because those strands are so massive, it just doesn't really suit him, which is a huge shame. I do think that his clothes are of a really nice detail. I think the colours are perfect. I think he looks fantastic. I do think that the standard of him was really high anyway because the clothes are very similar, but I think the newer version's slightly nicer, so I have to say that. Though I have to also say that his face, in my opinion, in the new one is slightly less good than in the old ones. Yes, he looks happier. He has a content face with a smile, and he didn't really have that. Neither of those are very happy, but I do think that they're slightly nicer in my opinion. Again, I think faces especially, people can be very subjective, so it's hugely like up to you, but in my opinion, I just really prefer the old Legolas face and hair, and I'm likely to change them in this set just for display purposes. Then next up, Gandalf. Gandalf's great, but also hasn't changed much from the figure that we've already seen. I'm glad that there's front and back printing on his skirt piece, and then he has a skirt piece. Don't get me wrong, that is awesome. I love that he has a cape and that the design of that cape is slightly different to the old one, so his beard doesn't smush it. But I also think that his face in the new figure is slightly less nice than in the old one. I just prefer it. Even though he wears a beard over his mouth, so you can't really tell the expression of his face as much because he has the beard piece, I think the old one is just slightly nicer because he smiles, and the new one is slightly like more stern, which yes is appropriate for the character, but I just prefer the old one. Also, I like the bushy eyebrows on the old one, but again, it's very subjective. I just had to shout it out. Top one is the old one and the bottom one's the new one, so you can form your own opinion of like which one is your favorite. But as I said, it's a great figure. I really appreciate, and this goes for Gimli as well, the fact that you get both the hat and the hair, so that when he's at the Council of Elrond, he doesn't have to wear his hat, so he's more polite, and I love that type of detail. Then next up, Bilbo, a character that I wasn't expecting to see, and the fact that he's included means so much to me. I'm really pleased we get to see old Bilbo. Also the first Hobbit I'm talking about, so it's appropriate here now to mention that I love the new dual molded legs for all of the Hobbits. It's perfect. It's exactly what the old ones are missing, and it just really makes them feel like hobbits. And I love that Bilbo also has the alternative expression of that really iconic moment where he wants to grab the ring. It's just perfect. It could have been a bit more darker even for my liking, but I think they've done a great job with him. He's very awesome. Thank you for including him. Next up, Gimli. Gimli, again, really like his figure. He had a really high standard figure before anyway, so if you compare him to the old version, I really appreciate that they made his beard shorter, so you get to see more of his torso, and also it looks a little bit more like easy to maneuver. And also his new helmet piece is really beautiful, and his face is nice. Though I have to say that I do think when you compare both helmets together, and apologies for the dust on the one that I have, I do think the old one may be my favourite, just because there's that sort of moulding at the back that just looks a little bit more detailed, whereas the colour of this new one probably is more accurate. So I like both basically, and I probably would be happy with either, but I think at the moment my preference slightly goes to the old one, but it's only very marginal. Then another figure that I'm just delighted to see included, which is Gloin. Oh my goodness, I would not have expected to ever see him as like the old Gloin, father of Gimli, in any set. I am just delighted that they did. Yes, his actual clothes are a bit boring, but just the fact that he's there made me happy enough, so I don't really want to criticize it too much, because I like his beard. It's a good recolor. I like that we get the hair in white. His face is wonderful. I'm just really delighted he's there. It makes me very happy. Then next up, another Hobbit, we get Merry. I think he is fantastic. He is super similar to the previous figure that we've seen. They have changed his hair colour to medium nougat instead of dark orange, and I have to say I think it's a great choice. I personally think that that fits him much better, especially when you compare him to the actor in the movies. He's fantastic. I love his figure. There's nothing more to say. Next up, Pippin. Obviously we have to talk about them. Also incredibly similar to his old version. I think he's perfect. He's so adorable. I love both figures. I also kind of like that both the new torsos don't have any skin colour showing like the old ones, meaning that you could, provided they ever put these on Pick a Brick or online, use these for other minifigures around your city and in other mocks and things like that, because you can just change the hands to whatever skin colour you want. I really appreciate when LEGO does that. Then Sam, again, great figure. I really think that the colour change of his hair to the darker colour instead of where Merry was the opposite works well for him. I think it's slightly more accurate. I have to say though, I'm not a huge fan of his face. I'm not like deadly set against it. I also don't really think that the old one was perfect, but I think this new one doesn't quite capture the actor as well as I would like. I think it's fine, but yeah, I just have to mention it. I don't think it's the most perfect thing they could have done. And then we have Aragorn. I really love that we get to see Aragorn in his Rivendell attire. It's not something we've seen before. I think his face is perfect. He is a bit bland maybe, but I do still think that his inclusion in his new clothes is kind of nice. Yes, if you wanted to take the Fellowship figures away and put them into like a separate scene, maybe some people would have liked Aragorn to be in like his ranger attire, because they are in Rivendell and primarily depicting the scene of the Council of Elrond. He should have been in his Rivendell clothes, so I'm glad they did that. And then next up, Arwen, and many of you know this, but basically she is my main gripe with this set. I'm very sorry to say I really do not like her figure. I don't think that it captures Liv Tyler in any kind of way. I just think that the hairpiece is all wrong, because yes, she does have bigger strands of hair in front of her shoulders in the movie, but she has like wavy hair in that scene that they're depicting with the white gown. I think her face is just maybe too common is not the right way to describe it, but just it doesn't capture the ethereal, elvish, otherworldly like that she's meant to depict, and I just do not feel like it captures her in any way in neither of her expressions. I'm just a bit disappointed that that happened, especially because she's one of the main female characters in the movies, and I do really quite like her character, though she's not my favourite. I just really, really wish that this figure could have been redesigned. I think she needs a different hairpiece. Just go back to the one that she had in the previous Rivendell set, and she needs a new face. I have to say though, I think her dress is lovely. It's not like blowing me away or anything, but it's a really lovely dress, and I'm glad that she's got a different one to, you know, the previous versions that we've seen. But I really, really do not like her face. And if they do happen to continue this line and she reappears again, I would nearly beg them to redesign her face. I think the old one that we've seen in previous sets is better. I also don't think that one's perfect, but I feel like that one's way closer in so many ways than this one is. That is basically just a really strong feeling that I have, and I really wish I didn't. And I think I would have slightly less problems with it if the figure that I prefer wasn't the value that she is, because she goes for a lot of money, and even in the last 2 years that I've been collecting Lego, her value shot up because I actually do own her. It's probably the one thing that I really wish I could change about this set, which is in otherwise so perfect in so many ways. After that slightly like sad note, there are 2 more figures that I wanted to talk about. There's obviously the statues, but I feel like they don't need a lot of talking about. They're just wonderful. I'm glad that they're there as a nice little bonus. But there's 2 unnamed elves. I think it's really wonderful that we're getting to see some unnamed elves just as background characters, because, you know, this is set in Rivendell, so it's good that there's more elves around. It's nice to get a few more hair pieces, I guess. The only gripe I have with them is the fact that the female elf uses Hermione's face, which to me is so recognisable and slightly takes me out of the immersion of the set, because it's so iconically Hermione's figure set. Like, I can't get over that. The male face, I think, is quite appropriate for him. However, I mean, it is still Draco Malfoy's face. I can't let it go. However, I think I'm more okay with that face just because it just works much better there. It's very, very generic. But Hermione's face, that may just be a subjective opinion of me. But she's obviously a really common face, so she would have been easy and cheaper to include. I do really like, though, that the female elf does have this skirt piece with printing back and front. That really wasn't, like, needed, and it's really nice that it was done, especially for the size of the set and the price tag that it holds. So it does really give that sort of special feeling, and I'm really appreciative of that. All right, that is it for the figures. I had a lot to say, it turns out. So I think it is time for us to move on to quality, because there is a few things of a semi-serious nature that I really do want to address that I did notice when building this set. So first up, this is actually something that I noticed previously in different sets, but they were not £430. So there is 2 sets that I've bought more recently, which is the Harry Potter Hospital Wing I bought at the end of last year, and then the Harry Potter Advent Calendar. And just like with this set for the Gloin figure, they all include the mid-leg dark bluish grey piece. And when I opened a bag for this set to put Gloin together, I noticed straight away that the dark bluish grey mid-legs, just like before, just have a really sort of milky see-through quality to them that does not match the longer dark bluish grey legs, and also they feel much softer and are slightly wonky. That is being really, really critical, and I absolutely know that I am being insanely critical. But let's be honest, Lego is a premium brand and they price their sets as such, and therefore I feel like we're justified to hold them to a certain level of quality that we expect when we spend something like £430 on a Lego set full of plastic bricks. You know, Lego is not the only person making bricks. There is a lot of competition trying to go after the same market just because it's so lucrative. So they have pressure behind them of keeping a really high quality standard. And these legs, to me, had I just found them in like a bin of parts, I would have just assumed they were fake. They did not feel like Lego, they did not feel like the right quality, and especially the colour was not a match to the dark bluish grey that they usually have. Though I had noticed that with the Ron figure in the Hospital Wing and the Moaning Myrtle figure in the Advent Calendar as well, because those sets were cheaper, I was like, that's really sad, but also, I guess. But for a £430 set to hold a piece like that made me kind of like, upset is too strong, but it was a bit disappointing. And because it's specifically with that colour and that piece, I think there's just a problem with the recipe, and I would really urge Lego to look into this and see if they can fix that, because I mean, if I notice it, it must be noticeable to quality inspectors as well, and I really would like to have it addressed. When I compare it to just normal dark bluish grey legs, the long ones, the colour is just different, the feel is different. When I compare it to different mid legs in different colours, again, the quality is different, the feel is different. This specific colour and leg size just doesn't feel right, and I really would like that looked at. Anyway, that was a really long story just about a pair of mid legs on a figure that I was already delighted that we saw in the first place, but I really do think, because it's not just a one-time occasion, I really want this addressed. There was actually also 3 other pieces where I had a similar issue. There seems to be something going on with the 1x2 modified bricks. The first time I came across this was in the pavilion build. There is a 1x2 wide brick with 2 clips. When I attached those, they didn't click very well, they felt stiff, their quality felt weird, their compatibility didn't feel right, and also they made a really weird squeaky noise. I have a bit of a clip for that if you wanted to see it and hear it. But basically, that just didn't feel right. And again, had I just found that in a bin of Lego, I would have just gone, oh, this is weird, this is probably not Lego, get rid of that. But this came out of a sealed bag, and this was Lego, and as you can see, it didn't seal around the edges easily. I had to really use a lot of force, and it reminded me massively of building an off-brand set where that compatibility and the clutch power wasn't entirely the same as Legos, but to have that in a Lego set is a problem for me. Again, not something that can't be overcome, and now it's built and I've used a bit more force, you can't tell, but I really need Lego to look into stuff like that, because they are a premium brand, and if they let the quality slip, then there is many brands that are happy to fill their shoes so quickly. It's just more a fact that I care about Lego and it being a good company that I mentioned this. It's not like a criticism of like, how rubbish are they? You know, they produce so many elements that this is bound to happen, because they must be constantly trying to make it better, trying to make sure that the recipes are optimized. But this is just a really obvious thing, and I can't believe that it's happened for such a big set. The color of these elements, however, was on point and didn't look any different, so that is at least really good, because the main issue that I've just already addressed, obviously the color wasn't right either. So it was just the clutch power and the feel of these pieces, so it's a little bit harder to show on camera. The same issue happened with a medium nougat 1x2 1-clip brick that you use for the chairs in the Council of Elrond, and a 1x2 bar brick that you also use for the stairs with the bar that kind of like goes up. They all made that sort of weird scratchy noise when you attach them, and again, I feel like I am justified holding Lego to a really high quality standards if they're asking me to spend what I spend on these sets. So please, Lego, can you look into this and fix this? Thank you so much. Alright, that's sort of the negative points on the quality addressed. Everything else was fine, everything else was perfect, no problem whatsoever. I just think that those quality issues that I've just addressed are really dear to me, and I wanted to make sure that they were properly spoken about. Right, it is time to move on to the third category, which is a little bit shorter and a little bit more delightful, which is displayability. It's bloody gorgeous, okay? It looks great. In case you're wondering, Lego actually advertises the set as 20 inches or 50 centimeters deep, but actually when you display it at an angle, it's much closer to 38 centimeters or whatever that is in inches. And as you can see, it's sitting above my Hogwarts. It's slightly wider than Hogwarts, but it's less deep. So if you have an extra deep Billy bookcase from IKEA, it will fit on there, in case you wanted to know. It is a wonderful display piece. It will look good in any house. Yes, it's massive, but for those who don't know, you can actually take the Council of Elrond scene with the tree and the council chairs out separately and just display that if you felt like the whole set in itself would be too big, or you can possibly take some of the sets off, because it does come in 3 parts, so you could just display 2 if you wanted to. I genuinely think that the colours in the set and like the way it looks from all angles make a perfect display, even just like in a living room. It's stunning, and especially in my house, all the colours work really well, and I wish I could just put it in the living room. But also at the same time, I want to keep it in my Lego room because I'm super like grateful for it. So just had to say that there. Alright, that's it for displayability. I can't really say much more than it's the perfect display piece. I'm going to be moving on to my mini gripes with this set. I wanted to have those separate from the quality pieces conversation because I think the quality is just a really specific gripe or problem that I found. However, I do think that these are just small things where I'm like going to be super nitpicky, and I just noticed and I was like, why? I don't need this. Or, this is a bit strange. Yes, these are super subjective and very nitpicky, but I'm gonna just have to run with that. First off, the lambast bread inclusion. Now, I did mention this in my first swords video, but Pippin holds a lambast piece. Okay, I don't really mind that Pippin holds that. It's a really cute little build, because he's it's such an iconic thing that he eats. I'm very happy for that to be included, especially if you wanted to take the figures and display them separately. Having a lambast piece included is totally fine. But when I was building this set, actually when you build the little side build, there is a plate of lambast bread as well. And now lambast bread is a travel thing that you take with you for long journeys where you don't know if you're going to find the food that you need. It's to sustain you. It's not like a thing that you would just eat when you're at home. And also in the movie, it's never even in Rivendell. It's actually only when they get to Lothlorien where they get given the lambast bread to take with them when they go traveling. Of all the things they could have put at that table, it really did not need to be lambast. I was very happy for Pippin to hold it. Honestly, didn't mind too much. You could feel this was made by fans. I just felt the one thing that didn't need to be that was the lambast bread. As I said, it's super nitpicky, it's super easily removed, and something else can be put on the table, but I just had to mention it because I just had to. As I already mentioned a few times, I really don't like the elven hairpiece. Yes, it's lovely that it's rubber and in the hard elven ears. It does look better in some ways than the old ones because sometimes the old ones had paint overrunning on the ears, but it's just not my favourite. I really, really would urge them to just redesign that piece, maybe with the hair coming slightly further forward and maybe just completely out of hard plastic because I do prefer that, and I really like that they moved away from using the rubber in the front sets. So that is basically what I know. I'm sure there's many restrictions that they have manufacturing wise why they can't. Yes, they tried with this new hairpiece, but I just don't like it. I'm really sorry. Only other gripe that I have left, and I have to mention it, is the stress I felt applying the stickers in this set was off the charts. I usually am not that bad. I don't love them, but I don't hate them either. Don't get me wrong, I like that these stickers were included because I like the detail that they bring, but they were very large and some were really quite hard to put on straight, and I've had to do a lot of them as close as I could get them without ruining the sticker. It's just a thing that happened. As I said, if I had to choose no stickers or not that detail, I would still have the stickers for the detail, but I just want to basically put it out there. It was quite hard to apply some of them straight, and I really wish they would have been printed, but I really also didn't want to pay more for the set, so hey, it's like a lose-lose situation. The detail is wonderful though, and I really do like the things that they depict. And I will get into that in a moment when I talk about the delightful details that I absolutely loved whilst building this set, and basically the thing that makes this set one of my favourite, if not my favourite sets I've ever built and owned. So first off, there is an Eye of Sauron build underneath the actual Council of Elrond where the seats are. This is such a wonderful detail. So when Gimli hits the ring and you get that eye come into the movie, it's also a really nice nod to the old set that they made of Rivendell where there is also an Eye of Sauron underneath. I just really, really like that detail. It's obviously a functional piece. You need it in the middle to support the council platform, and I just really like that they did that. Again, it was one of those details, it didn't need to be there, but they thought about it and they did that, and it just goes to show the love that went into the set. I also really like, and I've said this just earlier, the fact that you can just take the Council of Elrond platform off and just display that separately if you don't have the space for the whole set but do want to own the whole set. It's a wonderful detail. I really appreciate that, especially for people that have a room like mine. If this Rivendell set wasn't my pinnacle of my collection, I probably would just have the table itself. And also it makes it feel really like that old set. It's really like a sort of like-for-like comparison in a lot of ways. It's really nice. I also really enjoyed the fact that the tower, the big tower can come off, the top bit, so you can see into the room where Bilbo writes and you can see his desk better. It's a really nice little detail. It could have just been a solid tower. I would not have batted an eyelid or asked for anything else, but the fact that they made it removable is just really nice because you get to just see Bilbo sit at his desk better if you have him sitting there. It's just nice. It makes me happy. I also really enjoy, though this is a sticker, the inclusion of the mithril coat. It's just one of those details that showcases the love and the fandom of the people that designed it thank you. It made me very happy. There is a lot of details like that, and this is just one of the ones that I loved the most, and I just wanted to shout it out individually. As I already mentioned, and it's really funny because it's both in my gripe list and also in this list, but the stickers, though stressful, do add a level of detail and depictions that I really enjoy. There is like so no need to include them and include all those Lego based like scenes. I think the design of them is brilliant, so thank you for making them. Also, just a few basic, really quick things. The printed tile pieces that you get so many of in this set, they are wonderful, beautiful, delightful. I'm so glad we have this many. I need like a million more because I want to now put them in all my buildings because I really like the design. It's so simple and effective. They are stunning. Also the new fern pieces, I'm in love with them. I think they are brilliant. Again, need loads for my park, for example. I just really like them. And then just a few super quick things. The fact that they thought about making the figures sit at the Castle of Elrond, I included printed slopes for the skirted pieces and like the headlight bricks and 1x1 plates for the hobbits so they can still sit on their chairs and you can really have that Castle of Elrond scene. I love it. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. It's such a simple little thing, but it adds a new level of care and love for the set from Lego to us that makes me slightly less worried about the fact that I spent £430 on this set. I also really liked, and I said this in the figure bit, the fact that they included normal hair for both Gimli and Gandalf outside of their helmets and their hats, because it's more appropriate when they're sitting at the council to not wear the hats, so it's nice that there is an option to have that. Again, the care shown, it's wonderful. Also the fact that I went to the trouble of making all of these custom weapons like Gimli's axes, Anduril, Sting, like we've already seen Sting in a way, but also the sword for Boromir, really wonderful. And the thing that blew me away the most was the shard of Narsil, just because that was one of those things that I really wasn't expecting, and thank you so much to the designers. I really like that inclusion. It made me so happy and literally go, oh my god, they did this. Yeah, thank you for making it and just going that one step further. All of these things together make it just feel like this set was just the love child of these designers, and they really wanted to do the very best they could do. And again, do go watch the interviews with them because that's basically what they keep saying. Because of the amount of money this set costs and the fact that there is at least this level of care and detail and love gone into it, it doesn't hurt as much as it could have done. And I am so pleased that we were blessed with such designers and such care for a theme that I hold so dear. Overall, I think the general conclusion I can come to is, as I've mentioned, this set is one of my favourite, if not my favourite, both build and display pieces I own. It has pride of place. It honestly, I finished it and I literally just sat there with like a few tears in my eyes just looking at it like, this is brilliant. And I know I'm a bit of a weird emotional person, but like I really love this set so much. It's something that I never thought we'd see, and the fact that these old sets for Lord of the Rings are so valuable now, I feel like I don't really have the budget to get them. And then the fact that this set came, I had enough notice to actually save up for it, and then going to the store, buying that set with the Lord of the Rings music playing in the store, and just building this one bag at a time, really savouring it. And sometimes with you guys on live streams, it's probably the best thing that has happened Lego-wise this year to me, and I'm really grateful. This sounds super emotional for like literally just a set of plastic bricks, but it means a lot to me, and I hope that some of you, especially the really hardcore Lord of the Rings fans, feel the same. I really do hope that we will see more Lord of the Rings sets, but I feel like this is a really proud and amazing comeback, and also just displays piece. But even if you're not a massive Lord of the Rings set, this is still an amazing set that you can get and modify to just fit any fantasy theme, any fantasy build. There is a lot to learn from this set. If you don't have the budget to buy the full set, I would really recommend looking through the instructions, because there's a lot of really fun and beautiful builds for like furniture and for like a pavilion, as you've seen, because I've already replicated a pavilion for my city because it worked so well. There is a lot of elements in this build that you could so easily replicate for just smaller sets instead of buying the full thing, and I'm just really glad we got this from Lego. It's one of the best things that's happened in my opinion. I'm going to leave that review here. I know this has been really long, but I had a lot to say and I really wanted to do it justice. I'm afraid you're not done yet hearing from me talk about Rivendell, because there will be one more video, and I'm really, really excited about this, but I don't want to spoil too much. So I will see you on this channel very soon for both mocks, city updates, Lord of the Rings things, and not to forget the building of the Lego room, which is going on. So I will see you really very soon, you wonderful people. Thank you for supporting me. A special thank you for the members who are making this channel possible. Especially, like, without you, the Lego room, this set, they wouldn't have been possible, and I mean that. So I really appreciate you all. Have a fantastic rest of your day, guys. Hado! Goodbye!